And we are back. How is it going, everybody? Welcome to the Paws Up preview between the FIU Panthers and the Liberty Flames over at Lynchburg, Virginia, dropping on Tuesday night. Midweek football is back. Praise the heavens as we get set for what hopefully will be a great contest. Did you guys miss us? Did you miss our Pause Up preview last week? That didn't happen because there was no game to be played. I sure did. I'm Jay Gibson. That's my friend and co-host Kevin Barral and Kevin. It's a weird feeling because spoiler alert, but I don't think either of us are really leaning towards the FIU Panthers in this matchup. But it's a midweek game at night. Anything could happen. You never know what's going to happen. That's why you play the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we did the pod with Flex not too long ago, you said to beat the best, you have to beat the best.
Yep.
And that is exactly what FIU will attempt to do. Liberty is by far one of the best Group of 5 teams in the country. Yep. I think you have to put them up there with teams like Boise State, UNLV. Honestly, you just have to put them up there with those type of teams that are just really, really good. And Liberty is by far the class act of Conference USA, and they'll probably go undefeated again. I'm not going to lie to you. I think their biggest chance to lose was this past week against App State, which unfortunately that game did not happen due to the hurricane. We're hoping everyone's doing fine over there in North Carolina, Georgia, Boone, even all of West Florida. So we're hoping they're all doing well. And yeah, that is a really good team. They have one of the best rush offenses in the whole country. You have Quentin Cooley, you have Caden Salt, who both returned to Liberty. Caden had entered the portal and withdrew, I believe, like a day or two later. So that is a very, very good team, and that is a very veteran-led team, at least on the defensive side of the ball. So they're not as pass-heavy as they were last season, just given they did lose out on C.J. Daniels, who entered the portal and went to LSU, but that is still a really, really good Liberty team. And this, if you thought Indiana was the toughest team to play, that is probably true. Liberty's number 2.
Indiana's good. I think they're undefeated. I think they're nationally ranked, something like that. So
they're about to be. I think if they win one more game, they will be for sure.
Indiana's turned out to be a really good team, even better than what the Hoosier Huddle guys thought that they would be. But no, let's before we get into the Liberty game, let's talk about Louisiana Tech. That Louisiana Tech game, FIU wins by a score of 17-10. Kevin, just off the rip, FIU's defense only allowed 10 points. They pitched a shutout in the first half. I know that game against Central Michigan had a lot of eye candy from the defense, right? You had 5 interceptions. That was great to see. But I think this was overall a way better performance by the defense compared to that Central Michigan game. Just to deny Liberty's offense as well as they did, including that pivotal goal line stand in the first half, and then just minimize the damage, just 10 flipping points in the second half. I think that was a defensive masterpiece from FIU.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think the best way to put it is that it was lights out.
Lights out! Lights out!
You didn't see that one coming, huh?
I did it. That was a good job. Good job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, it was really good defense from FIU. You look at that game against Central Michigan, and it was not a great quarterback per se. Neither was La Tech's Evan Bullock, I believe, was who got the start. He wasn't great by any means, but you knew that La Tech had definitely the better offense. Although Central Michigan, by the way, has really come back, and they're looking like they're going to make a bowl game.
Looking good.
So, yeah, that is a really good team out there, nonetheless. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, the defense was good. I think you like to see those type of performances from a defense, where it's a good team for the most part. But yeah, the goal line stop. You finally saw them stop the run, for the love of God. Finally, they stopped the run. Only allowed 79 yards of rush offense. And in total, they only allowed 297 yards. I believe this is like the first or second time that FIU finally beats a team, and they don't have. And the opposing team doesn't have more total yards of offense than FIU. Yeah. For once, God damn.
It was close. It was only like a 7-yard difference, but still.
We don't say that.
It's the thought that counts. Yeah.
But yeah, overall, you take that. You take that performance from your defense, and hopefully they come out like that against Liberty. They really, 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 really need to come out like that against Liberty.
Yeah, just so far, just everything about FIU's defense went right that game. Trevion Barnes had an exceptional game as well. I mean, everything defensively looked good for FIU. There's not much to say. Let's talk about the offense, though. It was weird. I don't think the offense did the best they could have done. They got the job done. They scored 17 points. It was enough to beat Louisiana Tech, but I thought Jenkins had an okay game, 17 for 31, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, but I don't know. It just felt like there were quite a few 3-and-out drives where FIU just couldn't get things going. And while they did kind of limit the turnovers, they fumbled the ball once, and that was it. I don't know. I felt like the offense was a bit disappointing, Kevin, against a good Louisiana Tech defense. Don't get me wrong, but they didn't really blow me away either.
Yeah, they were fine. I mean, they did just enough. This was a La Tech defense that, even after this past week, still ranks at the top of the conference in total defense. So still have to not you don't take them lightly by any means. And the record, whatever the record is the record. I believe now they're 1-3. So I mean, Keywan was fine. I think you kind of said it best. He was all right. I mean, threw for 208 yards. Somehow Evan Bullock still threw for more yards than Keywan,
which is crazy.
Keywan also had that injury very early on. Well, not injury. He was that was as big of a hit as I've ever seen with
shout out Amari Jones.
Yes,
he came in, completed
yeah.
9-yard pass, and he was out. That was it.
I think that may have been his first or second ever college football game action. So
I think you pointed this out when it happened. Or no, it was Antonio from Panther. Ow. He said that Amari Jones had more yards in that game than Grayson James did.
Yeah.
In a full game against
Don't do our boy Grayson like that. But yeah,
shout out Grayson though. He gets the win at Boston College. Moving on. That was funny. No, offense.
Yep. It looked fine. It looked fine. I think they were fine. I think that's the best way to put it.
Eric Rivers, by the way, only 3 yards away from back-to-back 100-yard games. It kind of sucks to see, but he did miss that one pass. That probably would have been a touchdown as well, but that would have gotten him over 100. But no, Eric Rivers continues to impress, man. Dean Patterson was his backup, was the wingman, 74 yards. Paws podcast legend, Lexington Joseph, 73 yards and a score. So, no, there were some great playmakers. Kevin, that was a very fast game too. That game went by in what, 2 hours something minutes?
Just over 3 hours. I mean, the first half ended literally in an hour. So
yeah,
that was impressive. I don't think it'll be the same case. I think, and we'll obviously talk a little bit more about Liberty later. I think it'll be a lot closer than it was at homecoming last year, but I think it'll be a little bit of a longer game. Hopefully it is.
Hopefully. It was kind of refreshing to see a game just fly by that quickly. Something I thought was going to take a hit, honestly, from that Monmouth game was the attendance, the turnout. It was still great.
It was all right.
It was all right, but you thought after a loss to an FCS team, it would really take a hit. No, the fans still showed out. They stayed the whole game. I know they gave that giveaway, that Biscayne blue, like Vamos Pantera shirt that looked pretty sick. But no, overall the vibes were still high, and 2-1 at Pitbull Stadium, not too shabby. And FIU now has a 2-3 record, and I do want to bring up the fact that Antonio Ferguson, is going to be the guy at tight end moving forward because Rocky Beer's going to be out for a while. Prado, our kicker, as well. Chase Gabriel's going to be out for a bit. And Kevin, I know you brought this up. Juju Lewis is going to be out for the season. It's a tough loss for this team.
Yeah, Juju especially was a big one. He was finally really getting it going. He had a touchdown in the FIU game and the Monmouth game. Just, unfortunately, things happen and he's not out for the season. I kind of regret not asking Flex, just what advice would he give someone like Juju who, you suffer that same injury, Flex. So, yeah. And then obviously Josiah Meeman didn't play last week. I believe he'll be back this week, but we'll see what happens there. Antonio Ferguson should be taking over, though. He had a pretty solid game against Lotzig. He had 2 receptions for 19 yards, so he was all right. And then Alejandro Prado, he's actually been a lot better than I thought he would be. Chase Gabriel's out with an injury, an undisclosed one. We're wishing Chase the best. Coach Mack has said it multiple times to, just pray for him and hope he's doing well because, whatever he's dealing with, we're here for him. He's a Paws podcast legend, as he said. He's a great guy when he's on. So, but yeah, no, Prado's been pretty good. I think he just missed 1 field goal against FAU. aside from that, he's been really good. I mean, those kickoffs are certainly impressive. And FIU hasn't had someone to do kickoffs and field goals that being the same kicker. Usually it was Prado on kickoffs, Gabriel on field goals. And now Prado's doing both. So we're wishing him nothing but the best. And then the last guy to mention is Ben Schellenbach, offensive lineman. That guy has been very impressive. And I'm gonna look the PFF grades. I think he's like towards the top of the country in at the offensive line position. So he's definitely been impressive, and I'm gonna look for that right now. He's a tackle, so let's look for that.
Yeah.
He is number. Oh my god, did they remove him? There's no shot. No, he has to be somewhere here. Hold
okay.
If you want to talk a little bit about whatever.
Yeah. While Kevin's doing that research, let's start to talk about
76. He's top 100 in the nation.
There you go.
And we should talk a little bit more about these PFF grades. There's a lot of FIU guys who make these.
Yeah. Go for it. You were talking about that, Kevin. A lot of guys made the list.
I won't go through wide receivers, They've been pretty low on there. KJ Owens, we should talk a little bit about him. He's number 66 in the nation right now in the grades.
Yeah.
And then another guy who's really stood out is cornerback Brian Blades, who was the number 22 rated cornerback this past season, just above the Liberty cornerback, Christian Bodnar, and then all the way at the top, Kennesaw State's Javen Williams. So something worth keeping an eye out there when FIU.
The winless Kennesaw State Owls.
Yes, the winless Kennesaw State Owls, as he said. CJ Christian's also at number 48.
That's
JoJo
cool.
didn't crack. He's number 94, so we're kind of looking at a more updated list than I did last time. Travion Barnes, man, he really needs more recognition, especially from PFF. He's only 110. I think he'll definitely go up there, but I think we're going to do this a little more formally next time, call it PFF Panthers, and we'll be going through those because there's a lot of guys who have been given a lot of recognition this season, especially on the offensive line. A lot of guys at least rated given a top 100 grade amongst their certain positions. So shout out to those guys. And I think we don't really talk about these guys enough, like Brian Blades, who's been so damn good this season. And he's been really, really good. He's setting himself up for a very, very nice offseason. Who knows if he transfers, but he's really good. And Travion Barnes is an absolute stud. There's just no other way to put it. Voted Conference USA Player of the Week. And I think I wrote an article on it, and I'm going to look for it really quickly because he is towards the top of the nation in multiple stats, and he's well on his way to breaking that FIU total tackles record. He is right now number, let's see. Oh my God, where is it? No, I guess he took it off. Oh, he leads the team with 54 total tackles.
Yes.
He, I believe, is number one he's number one amongst the conference in total tackles, and I believe he's number two in solo tackles.
Yeah.
Barnes is first in CUSA in total and solo tackles. He has 6 in sacks, and amongst the country, Barnes is third in solo tackles and fourth in total tackles. So he's really, 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 really good. He is really good. We thought, right now that's the best player on the team.
Hard to argue that, Kev. Let's get into our opponent now. The Liberty Flames, the defending Conference USA champions. What more is there to say about them? Last season for them was absolutely lit. It was a undefeated regular season. They went 12-0. They then beat New Mexico State in the championship game. Final score of 49-35. And then, but they took on Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. Bo Nix, they were mad they didn't make the college football playoffs. What did? They dropped 45 points on the Flames, who only scored that. They scored that touchdown to start the game, but they didn't do anything after that. They lost 45-6. Currently this season, they've looked. I mean, they're undefeated. I mean, what more do you really have to say? They demolished. It was close. It was closer than what the score would tell you. They demolished Campbell 41-24. They played a close game against New Mexico State. They won that 30-24. They blanked UTEP 28-10, and then they beat Eastern Carolina 35-24. And like we had mentioned earlier, their game against Appalachian State was canceled due to the hurricane. So they're going to be a little rusty, Kevin. I don't know. But no, they have a great squad there. Regardless of if they keep the games close or if they blow them out, they always find the way to win.
Yeah, they were down 17-0 to East Carolina.
Yeah.
They were losing to New Mexico State as well. And I think at some point they were also losing to Campbell. So they've been able to kind of scrap their way back into these games. And right now they have the best offense in the conference. They're putting up 458 yards per game. Yeah. They have the best scoring offense in the conference, 33.5 points per game. And their defense is number 2 in the conference just because La Tech right now is number 1.
Yeah.
And they've played the same amount of games. Liberty has the best rush offense in the conference. They also have they're actually a little bit struggling in the past. They're only 5th in the conference. FIU is number 7 in the conference. But they have the second best rush defense in the conference, and then the third best passing defense in the conference. So they're a legit team. They're as legit as it gets. This is by far the best team FIU will play. And as we said, those guys are really freaking good. And you kind of look just at the conference leaderboard. Quentin Cooley leads the whole conference with 371 rushing yards. Yeah. Caden Salter has not ran it as much this season, which has surprised me a little bit. He's not even like amongst the top 10 in rushing yards this season, which that wasn't the case last year. He was, where even is he? He's not even in the top 25. So Salter's number 15, 131 rushing yards. So there's a couple of guys amongst the conference that have more rushing yards than Salter. So yeah, and then obviously on the receiving side of things, they actually have Trayon Sibley, who has 16 receptions for 357 yards and a touchdown. He's been used a decent amount. And then on the passing side of things, obviously Salter has been really, really good. He's third in the conference with 949 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. So
yeah,
pretty solid. Let's see how that goes for FIU. Salter is a dual threat guy. He's going to be the first one they see since Cam Fancher. I think they learned their lesson last time, and I think they learned their lesson last year when they faced Salter and Homecoming. So yeah, I really think this is a very tough task, but I think it's doable to a certain extent. I think if FIU's defense plays the way they've been playing, I think they should do just about enough to limit Liberty's side of things.
Something that Liberty does not do is turn the ball over. Only 1 interception for Salter so far this season. Salter has proven himself to be a phenomenal quarterback. Liberty themselves, I don't know if they began the season in the top 25, but they've received votes. They've received top 25 votes as the season has gone on. They haven't been in it since the season began. I want to say, despite being undefeated, but I think it just goes to show there's a lot of good G5 teams and obviously a lot of good P4 teams as well. I still think that UNLV has an amazing squad, Kevin. My goodness, even without their quarterback, they look good. But,
they looked even better without him. So
I know, isn't that funny? But no, Salter. I still think Salter is the cream of the crop in Conference USA when it comes to quarterbacks. I just think he does it all. He's a great runner and he's a accurate passer. And like I had mentioned, he doesn't throw picks that often. He has been sacked 7 times this season, which I mean, Jenkins has been sacked 9 times, but he's been susceptible to the big hits every now and then. But this Liberty team is scary because they brought back a lot of talent from last season. You have a guy like Cooley and Sibley. Just that trio there of Salter, Cooley, and Sibley. I think it's the best trio, the best quarterback, wide receiver, running back trio in Conference USA. Maybe even one of the best in G5.
Yeah, and I think one thing to notice on the defensive side of the ball is just, I think their success defensively is just getting to the quarterback. TJ Bush for Liberty, 4 sacks on the season. He also has 1 assisted. I mean, they've been really good on that side of things. They also, I mean, you kind of like start looking at these stats. It's just like FIU really is a really good defensive team. But then you also look at Liberty, and it's like Dexter Ricks Jr. He's number 2 in the conference with 2 interceptions. You look at the teams in general. I mean, you look at just the defensive numbers, sacks against. I mean, Liberty has 7 interceptions. Liberty has 3 of them this season. Forced fumbles. And Liberty is towards the top of that list too. Surprisingly, actually, no, they only have 2. So, I mean, they play this type of football that is going to be very uncomfortable for an opposing offense, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any standout player that's been really good. I mean, you look at the total tackles, leaders right now, total tackles. And look, I'm going to be straight up with you. Travion Barnes is at the top. CJ Christians is number 4. And then you have JoJo Evans, number 12, Jamal Potts, number 13. There's only one player on the Liberty Flames that's amongst that top 15.
Mm-hmm.
And that is CJ. No, that is where is he? Yeah, I know he's in there. Where is he? He's not. No, there's no one in the top 15. So I'm completely wrong on that. So
okay,
yeah, that it's a very interesting team. Not obviously the solo tackles. I believe he's on there. So he's Joseph Carter. So he's number 6 in solo tackles. But yeah, this Liberty team is definitely beatable, I would say, Jake, than it was last year. Last year, you looked at it and it was just like, that team's unstoppable. FIU has a full year to prepare. They're going back to Lynchburg. That's where Flex had his 100-yard touchdown, as he told us.
That's where it happened.
I genuinely think there's a chance. Now, will they win? I really don't know. I don't think there's a big chance for them to win, and I think that'll reflect on my prediction tonight. But overall, I think it should be a really fun game. It should be a lot more closer than it was last season. I mean, I want to say this is the best team Liberty will play at the moment.
We'll see. Liberty has.
Who
No.
I
get what you're saying. Keywan, you had mentioned Keywan.
ECU is probably the best team they've played, but I think in Conference USA it'll be FIU.
Jenkins lead towards the top of the conference in quite a few stats you'd mentioned, but this is going to be a tough team. And offensively, the Flames average, I think 34 points per game, which is crazy. So no, it's just going to be such a tough task for both sides. I mean, Liberty is a team that if all goes well is expected to not just host the Conference USA Championship game, but to win it again, and they're expected to make a very solid bowl game, maybe even the college football playoff. But they still need to do something about that canceled game against App State.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned Keywan, by the way, because he's playing like the best quarterback in CUSA right now, and his only competition is Nicholas Vadiato on Middle Tennessee, was just more passing yards than him. But right now, Keywan has the most passing touchdowns. He's towards the top there in passing percentage. He's 6th, which isn't great, but whatever. He averages the 4th most yards. He has the 4th best QB efficiency in Conference USA. Now, a lot of this also has to be looked back and just be like, just generally just how much things you kind of look at in some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Just, how much playing time each quarterback has gone.
Mm-hmm.
Keywan just hasn't thrown the ball very long. His longest play of the season has been a 42-yard pass, which I believe was Eric Rivers.
Yeah.
So you would kind of like to see they've definitely opened the playbook a little bit more this season, but I think it just comes down to opening it up enough where Keywan's going to go down there and sling the ball. And honestly, he really should. He really should sling the ball against Liberty. They need to do it. They need to come out of the gates and they need to score first. I think that's the biggest key to the game.
Yeah.
Is score first against Liberty to set the tone, know what you're going to do, and then they're gonna kill you on the run game. There's just no other way to put it. This season, FIU's defense is literally. I'm gonna look for this stat real quick. This season, FIU has the 7th worst, or the 7th rush offense amongst 10 teams in Conference USA. In passing, they've been a little better. They're 5th, so that's kind of fine. But yeah, you really need to defend a run, and they need to stop Quentin Cooley. There's just another way to put it.
Yeah. So let's see what someone from Liberty is thinking about this game. I had the chance to speak with Ben Reynolds of the Fan the Flames football podcast. They just think they have it so good over there in Lynchburg.
They really do.
First year in COSA, they win the chip. They get to go to a New Year's Six bowl. But no, Fan the Flames, super awesome pod. I believe I'm going to be hopping on there as well. This was recorded, by the way, on Wednesday, October the 2nd. So we're really early for this preview, but the grind, it never stops. I'm happy to have spoken with Ben Reynolds of Fan the Flames. So let's see what he has to say about this matchup from a Liberty perspective. Let's check in. And hey, everybody, welcome to the halftime segment, if you will, of the Paws Up preview. We hope you're enjoying the show so far. Now it's time to talk about our opponent for this Tuesday. It is none other than the undefeated Liberty Flames. And who better to bring on to talk about the Flames than the man from the Fan the Flames football podcast, Ben Reynolds. How are you doing, Ben?
Doing good, man. I'm happy to be on. Always awesome to collab with you, man. It's cool where this is a different style than our typical roundtable. So I'm excited to talk Flames football.
Yeah, I mean, what more is there to say about Liberty in general and their short but very successful time spent in Conference USA? And that's kind of where I wanted to start, Ben. Very high aspirations for Liberty coming off of an undefeated regular season, conference champions. Obviously, you had that New Year's Six loss, but still a remarkable campaign. Just overall, it's tough not to say that they're where you think they would be when the season began because they're undefeated. But just generally speaking, what are your thoughts on the team so far and what they've been able to do?
Well, we've done a great job this year of finishing games. I would say that would be the biggest takeaway. We've had some slow starts. I'm happy of where we're at. Unfortunate past weekend, and I do want to say, if you have the time, take some time and some money to invest into Boone's community and some of the Western Carolina families. Thoughts and prayers out for them. We unfortunately couldn't have a game this week, so shout out to them. It's a terrible tragedy. It sucks that we don't have a football game, but it's bigger than football. So, just real quick, wanted to say that because, that's part of the season where it's kind of just been a disappointment that's been out of our control. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of interesting. You had that New Mexico State game that went late, and then the ECU accidentally goes, not the best performance in the sense of the rain delay. And thankfully we come out and win. But, and then then you, of course, have to have tragedy strike. So it's been an interesting season so far. This is one of the more interesting seasons we've had so far.
Talk a bit about the head coach, Jamie Chadwell. It's his second year now with the Flames. Obviously, his stock market in the FBS P4 level went very high after what he was able to do last season. Now he's looking to repeat this year. Just in these 2 years with the Flames, just how has he been able to turn an already great program around into one of the group of five powerhouses that Liberty has become?
I don't even just put it on Chadwell. I put it on kind of the whole Liberty Athletics department and the amount of money and time we've invested into building a program that's going to be able to sustain a very consistent team. One of the things that stands out with Chadwell is this is something of a dream destination for him. And you hope that what he says is true, and he does stay a little while. I don't expect him to stay forever. But I would not surprise me if he's here longer than Freeze was. Freeze kind of had that SEC aspirations, and we're kind of seeing how that's going. He's having a great high school recruiting class this year. But we'll see how he does in the long run. But, Chadwell having that right now, one of the cool things he's really changed is the culture. And I know that I've mentioned this to you in the chat and also in the podcast roundtable is I didn't see Freeze out in the Lynchburg community. I live here in Lynchburg, and I see coaches at games, and that's, not just at the football games. I see them everywhere, and I see them out and about in restaurants, and I didn't see that with Freeze and their coaching staff. That's not to say that they weren't doing it, but I just see them a lot more often out in the community interacting, and, even if it's in church or whatever it may be, he's out there, and he's just really established a culture that, hey, you see that coach stability ranking in the video games. He's higher up, that I think, than more than people think. He's going to still get some rumors of your Floridas and things of that nature possibly this year. But at the same time, I think he's going to stay here a little while. And that I think recruits and people see that. So that's why they want to come and play at Liberty.
And just talking about how the Flames win, because they're known to blow out a team or two, but so far this season, Campbell kept it close with Liberty for a while. New Mexico State kept it close for a while. UTEP and Eastern Carolina, those two games, they kept it close for a while before ultimately pulling away in the end. My takeaway from Liberty is that they have that it factor where they know how to win when the situation matters the most. They know how to win in the end. Just talk a bit about how they've been able to do that.
Yeah. So one of the things about it is back in the spring, right, because we had an early spring. So we did it almost right after the bowl game. We only had a month off. And so a lot of the Chadwell came out and said, "Man, this is a great team we're building, but don't expect us to go undefeated again. We're gonna have a little bit tougher schedule. Even it may not show on the rankings or anything, but we could have a better team in the sense of talent, but still not have the same results." And people in the fan base, I think, were a little bit shocked. We have a little bit younger fan base, with not being in the FBS very long, let alone in college football. I grew up a Penn State fan. They have a long-standing tradition, so it was a little bit interesting to see that. So that's the thing. He's been able to create again that culture to finish these games, and these players are resilient. They've gone through now 3 different experiences that I think are going to shape their lives. Both CJ Bazile and Cooley. I just listened to their interviews earlier. One of the things CJ Bazile actually said, he's our defensive end. He said, Coach Krantz, who's one of the he's outside linebackers coach and special teams coach, said, you can't take these games for granted. You never know when you're going to when you're not going to have another game, whether it's injury or whatever. Like this past weekend was a tragedy. But so that's kind of the thing with these guys. They've kind of put it into their mind of, hey, every game matters. It doesn't matter who's on the scoreboard and what the scoreboard even says. Let's go play it and let's go finish games, and that's what they've done this year.
Let's talk a bit about the head honcho at offense. It's Caden Salter. Last season he looked great. This season he continues to impress. Not only being obviously their go-to guy in the passing department, but he's also a very versatile rusher, and he doesn't turn the ball over. He only has 1 interception so far this season. Talk about the talent that he brings to the squad, his leadership role, and how he handles that, and maybe some aspirations for when he eventually graduates, and if he's got eyes at the NFL level on him.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with Caden is he's still got a lot to develop. And one of the things that he's really got to develop is his decisiveness and his decision making when it comes to throwing the football and when he needs to tuck it and run. We saw that a little bit in ECU, and unfortunately, not having the game this past week, couldn't see it. So now we're up playing against you guys. And I think what's interesting is, a lot of people are going to look at the Monmouth game and they're going to be like, man, he should be able to just throw it all over. But Chadwell even talked about, and I know you probably know this, is the Conference USA right now, FIU arguably has the best cornerback group. People say otherwise, despite a Monmouth performance, but there's a lot of talent on that team. So I think we're going to really have to see him continue to develop in this game, because against Campbell and some of these other teams, and ECU is a quality team, but he had some moments early on where you're like, what is going on? And you could say maybe, oh, well, it's the 4.5-hour delay, all this other stuff, but he's still got to continue to improve. They gave him such a high rating in college football game, and he has all this hype and this Heisman. We had all these high expectations. He made an amazing play in the championship game last year. At the end of the day, he's still got a lot of things that he's got to pick up on and just improve on. And it's simple things like mesh points with running backs he's already had a year and a half with. He's got to get better with. So, but the X factor about him is I've seen him be able to persevere through his own mistakes and not make the same mistake twice within a game. Maybe he'll do it multiple games in the year, but not the same game. So that's the nice thing with Caden that I've seen and been improving, because we saw him a couple of years ago. His first start was against Southern Miss. Well, not start, but first playing time. And that was a comeback game, and then he got hurt, and then there was a whole thing with that. And last year we were like, we don't know what he's going to be. This year, he's the guy 100%. And there was some controversy, like, maybe, but he still came out and performed at the end of the ECU game. Yeah. And now he's got to do it against an FIU defense that has arguably the best cornerback room in the entire conference. So
something that makes Liberty's offense so scary, it was their exceptional ability this offseason to retain talent. I mean, they were able to bring back some of their best players, such as Quentin Cooley and Billy Lucas in the running back room, and then Trayon Sibley in the receiver corps. Just I think we already know about those guys because we saw what they did last season. But talk a bit about some of the other players you think the FIU fans should keep an eye on for that could absolutely wreck the defense.
Yes, for sure. If we're just talking offensive guys, I mean, you got to talk about the offensive line that starts in the trenches. We got Xavier Gray, who's a returner. Then you got Jordan White, who's also a returner, and Jack Tucker. Those are the three stalwarts when it came to experience returning on this offensive line. And then you got J.P. Flores, who transferred from Louisville. And then you also got a Harrison Hayes, who's been with the program for a while, but doesn't have too much experience out on the field. So that helped. They've struggled to gel early on. J.P. Flores got hurt, which caused Jordan White to move back to his initial position at West Virginia, where he was center last year for Liberty, and before he was a guard. So now he had to shift over to the guard, and a very young Aaron Fenimore, who has a ton of potential, had to go with center. And then you have of course, those running backs, the underrated guy, you hear about Cooley, but Billy Lucas is a really underrated runner. I think he's got the highest ceiling on this team. I know that there's a little bit of question of how much eligibility he has left. I don't know. I think he might have a COVID year or anything like that. With Cooley having his years used up, if he can retain that year, he will be the feature back next year. But he is in the rotation as the second guy, and I think he's 1A, 1B with Cooley. The stats doesn't show it necessarily when you're looking at just straight rushing yard, but if you look at his yards per carry, he's a very productive back. And I've gotten some little fun debates with Liberty faithful about this. But looking at the wide receiver and some of the weapons on the outside with our tight ends of Bentley Hanshaw and Austin Henderson, two guys who are very big. They haven't had the impact that I expected them this year to have. And I think that's a little bit with Caden, but I also think it's a little bit of Caden relying on Sibley. Sibley was the returning number one guy, but that was more of comfortable, how he was comfortable with the receiver, like with the quarterback. But out of the other receivers, you want to look out for a Dante Lee, who's really emerging as a guy, and he keeps on getting better every game. A Tyson Mobley, who came from Coastal Carolina, didn't have the best years back then, and he had a year, kind of had some injuries, but he's really coming on, knows the system. Elijah Canyon, another guy from Purdue, really talented, big-bodied receiver, can really go up and high point the ball, and he's a guy that's actually an underrated route runner. And then the guy that has really popped off, especially the ECU game, was Reese Smith with 3 touchdowns and 80 yards in receptions. He almost had a fourth too, and he's a guy coming from West Virginia who was out last year. He was on the Liberty team but missed the whole year because of a torn ACL and torn meniscus. He's a guy that actually I think is going to be a very important part of this offense going forward, because he's a really crafty slot receiver. Kind of reminds me of a little bit smaller Cooper Kupp.
Wow. I mean, that's one hell of a comparison, but let's flip things over and talk a bit about Liberty's defense. They've been consistent. I mean, out of three of their 4 games, they've given up 24 points, so I feel like we've seen some mixed turnouts for this Liberty defense. What's your take on how well they're doing this season, and how does it compare to what we saw last year, and especially when they only gave up 6 points to the Panthers?
So this year's defense is very different, and the reason why is the back end of our defense is still very inexperienced. We do have a returner in Brylan Green, but Quentin Reese is more of a I would call a big nickel type guy. He's going to be able to really make some tackles, and he's going to play more behind the line of scrimmage than anything. But we do have 2 returning edge rushers who are very fantastic, TJ Bush and CJ Basil. Interior, Jay Hardy, I know he's been wrestling through some injuries, but we also have Bryce Dixon, Eli Hall, I'm blanking on the one guy, but also Chris Bodie and some others in there that are starting to rotate. Miss Jay Hardy has been kind of not the greatest, but it is what it is. I'm hoping he should return after that FIU game, which would be the Kennesaw game. So then we got a linebacker. We got Taylor Jackson, Jerome Jolly, who's a converted safety, along with Jamar Brown, who's also a converted safety. So there's a lot of athleticism in our linebacker room. And then we have a returning a guy who was a walk-on who's really made a name for himself, and that's Joe Carter.
Yeah.
But the most interesting part about this defense and where we've been exposed early on in the year compared to last year is our corners. Marion Williams is returning, and he's a great, great player, but he hasn't got a lot of reps. Same thing for Dominic Hill, and I don't know why. Dexter Ricks has had to step up, and he's young, and he's gotten burned a few times. There's been a few times in both the Campbell game and the New Mexico State games where he was kind of exposed, but he's continued to improve, and I've seen improvements, especially in the ECU game and the UTEP game as well. He had an interception in back-to-back games. So last year we relied on a lot of turnovers. We're not really having the many turnovers as we did last year. So, something maybe we'll have to change there, but you also can't always win games by turnovers. So you're not always going to get lucky. So
who would you say so far is the biggest threat in Conference USA to Liberty? It's expected at this point that if Liberty wins out, obviously they're going to host the CUSA championship game. I would say it's between Western Kentucky and Sam Houston for that 2 spot. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think Western Kentucky has a little bit of an edge over Sam Houston, and the reason being is because they have 2 quarterbacks that could both start on various teams in Conference USA. Caden Veltkamp, we make the joke about how you drafted him in our fantasy, but it's funny how he has become like a threat, and it's like we're like. I knew he was going to be solid because of the bowl game, but I didn't think he was going to be doing as well as he has, especially replacing a guy like TJ Finley, who was expected to come in and really make a difference. They've had a great legacy these past 4 or 5 years, from Bailey Zappi to Austin Reed, and I believe there was another guy before then, of just guys that have came in and done very well for that program. And it's a testament to Tyson Helton, who I think is the second best coach in this conference. Casey Keeler, man, he's really making a name for himself to be that second or third guy as the best head coaches. I would even argue that he might even be better at sometimes with Tyson and even Jamie, because he doesn't have the resources as those programs and the time in the FBS. What he's done just in 2 years, yes, you can say, oh, they went 3-9 last year. What he's doing right now, especially with that comeback against Texas State, I know it was a neutral site, but still, that was a very difficult game where I think a lot of people probably in our group chat would have been like, I don't know, and I'm sure Ben could probably say this as well from the March to Pod podcast. I'm sure they were like, oh, gosh, the end of the first quarter, they're up 22-0 or whatever, and you're like, oh, no. But, it's between those two. You're right, but I lean a little bit more Western Kentucky just because I think as much as I like Hunter Watson, I think Caden Veltkamp has a little bit of the edge right now for the quarterback. And I know it's not all about quarterback, but Western Kentucky seems like they've improved in all facets of the game. And they lost an all-star receiver in Keyshawn Johnson.
Yeah.
Some of these other receivers have really stepped up.
Alrighty then, FIU and head coach Mike McIntyre looking for a marquee win in his tenure still, and obviously the FIU's hungry to knock off the best. In order to be the best, you have to beat the best, and FIU has that chance. What does Liberty have to do right to avoid an upset that would pretty much shock the college football world?
Oh, to be honest, with the way that everything is going, it wouldn't shock me if y'all did upset us. I know the percentage isn't very high, but of course with everything that's been transpired these past few weeks, let alone what's going to be, we're on a bye right now, and then it's a quick turnaround to a Tuesday. It's going to be a very interesting night. I think that we need to come out there and run the ball. That's where it's got to start.
Yeah,
we got to run the ball effectively, start loading the boxes. Because I don't want to have to rely on Salter and these receivers right away. You got a guy in Cooley and a guy in Lucas that you can really rely on. And I'd like to see a lot more of our just overall creativity with our run game. Now we're in conference, and these games matter. So out of conference matters, of course, but these games really matter to get a championship. You can't afford to lose to really anybody in this league because, then you lose your chances of hosting a conference championship. So that's where it starts on the offense is running the ball. That's really my biggest point in winning the trenches there. So that way it does open up the passing game. If we can contain y'all's running game and force Keywan Jenkins, who I think is an effective passer, but he's also, turnover prone, just because he's young, I think he could be the future one of the faces of this league, honestly. If we could contain that run game and force him to throw the ball a little bit, that's going to be the key factor there on the defense. I really do believe that. But Keywan Jenkins, he's a threat. He's probably number 3 or 4 in my books, probably 4 right now because Hunter Johnson Hunter, I can't believe I'm blanking. Hunter Watson from Sam Houston is really shown that he can be very good. So he's definitely in the top 4. So I'm not hedging my bets to have to be like, let him throw the ball. He's a very talented guy. You got Dean Patterson out there too. So
true. Yeah. Alrighty, Ben. Thanks so much for talking some Flames with me here today, man. If you could drop your socials, let the people know where to follow you and the work you guys do over at Fan the Flames.
Yeah, so I'm part of Flamesville.com, first of all, which is, we're another independent source for Liberty fans to look at. And, we got some articles here and there. And we have some podcasts. And we are the premier podcast, I guess you could say. Fan the Flames football podcast at FTF Football Pod is where you can find us on X. That's mostly where I stay. This week I've been off and taking a little bit of break as it's the bye week. It's been nice to be away from that, focusing on work and life instead of that. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me. And as always, man, I just appreciate you for this time. And I look forward to Tuesday night.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much, Ben. And now let's bring it back to the our Paws Up preview with myself and Kevin as we go over the CUSA slate this week in FIU athletics and game predictions. Alrighty, that was Ben Reynolds from Fan the Flames. Be sure to follow Fan the Flames podcast to see how they're preparing for this game against FIU. Obviously, Kevin, I know you remember our homecoming game last year. We collabed with FIU alumni and hyped up. We had Scott Carr and everybody, but then the game started and then it just didn't go FIU's way from the beginning of that game. So I really want to see some revenge. Do you have any bold predictions for this game?
Obviously, I want to say FIU is going to win, but I think it'll be a closer game than it was before. I mean, I think what was the last score? 38-6.
Yeah,
not fun. It was not fun at all. I think that was Keywan's, I want to say, 3rd start in college football, by far his worst at the time. So we'll see what happens. I think Keywan should have a better game right now. He's playing like the best quarterback in the conference. There's no other way to put it. He's playing even better than Salter, just overall with passing touchdowns and passing yards. Obviously, on the ground, it's been a little bit different. But yes, I think the offensive line really needs to step up this game. They allowed 3 sacks in the last one. FIU really needs to run the ball a little bit more, at least try to find some sort of run game. I know it's been tough with Liberty. They're really going to pressure you a lot. They're going to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable at some points. But I think if you pass the ball, if you really sling it, you have 2 really good wide receivers with Dean and Eric Rivers out there. So they really need to sling it. And I think they should have a chance to win.
Alrighty, let's take a break from talking about some football to talk about what is going on around FIU athletics, who to keep an eye on for in the 305. So let's get right into it. We have a bunch of sports going on right now, starting off with men's soccer. They currently, at the time of recording, they have a 3-4-2 record. We don't know how their game against the UAB Flames has gone. However, their next upcoming game will be next Saturday, October the 12th at 7 o'clock when they take on the 9th-ranked Charlotte 49ers. That game's going to be on ESPN+. The next home game is actually going to be far from now on Sunday, October the 20th when they host FAU. That'll be on ESPN+ as well. And you can be sure to support the Panthers against their FAU rivals over at the Leyva Family Field. So moving on now to FIU women's soccer. At the time of recording, they have a 7-3 record. We will not know how they did against the New Mexico State Aggies and the UTEP Miners on Thursday and Sunday. Their next game that you can watch will be against the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs on Wednesday, October the 9th at 8 o'clock Eastern. That's in Ruston. Their next home game is actually not going to be for a while. until Sunday, October the 27th, when they take on Western Kentucky at 1 o'clock on ESPN+. FIU indoor volleyball has not had a great season so far, 2-13. They're coming off a two losses against the UTEP Miners. This is actually 5 losses in a row for the FIU Panthers. We won't know how they did against both Middle Tennessee. That 2-game series against Middle Tennessee. They will be taking on the Liberty Flames, funnily enough, at the Ocean Bank Convocation Center on Tuesday, October the 8th at 6 o'clock, and Wednesday, October the 9th also at 6 o'clock. Both games will be on ESPN+. And lastly, FIU swimming and diving started off the season a bit slow against the University of Miami with a loss there by a point total of 216-81. We don't know how they did at that TYR Fall Classic they like to do over at Biscayne Bay. However, the next upcoming matchup is going to be on Saturday, October the 26th at 10 o'clock when they host SMU at the Biscayne Bay Aquatic Center. So, of course, we are wishing the best of luck to them. So, it's time for some CUSA predictions, Kevin. And again, this was recorded way ahead of time. So we don't exactly know how Week 6 did, but we were both on Sam Houston and we were both on Jack State. So if both of those teams get it right, well, bam, on your screen right now is going to be our updated season standings. If either of us got it wrong, you'll see it right now as well. So it's time to get into Week 7. Kevin, the college football season is flying by so fast.
It is.
It takes so long to get here, and it goes by that fast. So
definitely does.
We have to make the most of this, Kevin. Let's start off with the game on Wednesday, October the 9th. It's going to be New Mexico State taking on Jacksonville State. That's a 7:30 p.m. kick.
Give me the Gamecocks.
Yeah. I could see a world where New Mexico State stuns Jack State just because of the season they're having, but nah, they're at home. I'm assuming they're going to be coming off a win as well. Yeah, give me Jacksonville State. So next up is Thursday, October the 10th. Middle Tennessee is taking on Louisiana Tech at 8 o'clock. That's a toss-up, Kevin. That could go either way. That's a coin flip kind of game.
Give me the Blue Raiders.
You're taking the Blue Raiders, huh?
I like Vadiato, man. I like Vadiato.
I know. I'm going to take the Bulldogs. I'm going to say that maybe they get some things correctly there. You know what? I just had a premonition from Go Tech, Please Don't Die, telling me about how bad Louisiana Tech is, and you know what? I'm changing my pick. Give me Middle Tennessee on the road. There's going to be a lot of road teams winning these next couple of weeks based on our predictions.
Yeah, man. Maybe we're all wrong. And
maybe, but yeah, no. I'm going to take Middle Tennessee. So. And then on Thursday, October the 10th, it's UTEP taking on Western Kentucky at 8 o'clock. I've made it clear by now I'm never picking UTEP in a game. Give me Western Kentucky at home. I think they're going to be wearing their cool position player big red helmets for that game as well. So those are fire.
Give me Western.
Okay. You see how these around CUSA is
Mm-hmm.
speeding by now, but with these midweek games, it's crazy. I mean, football's just going by so fast. Alrighty then. It's time to ask a pretty big question. Who will win between the FIU Panthers and the Liberty Flames? Let's just get right into it, starting off with college football 25. EA has been kind of on and off with predictions. Let's see who they chose for this. It's not going to be good.
Sometimes it's just not your day. Things just didn't work, and that seemed to be the case here.
Yeah, they didn't get the W. They didn't do enough. But now you start to think about what could I have done differently? What do I need to become more offensively? Defensively, what can I morph into to make those extra plays, Jesse? That might be the difference in the next game that I play.
Not too great, Kevin. Jenkins went 12 for 24, 163 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks.
That's the conference lead right there for most interceptions.
True. Shamari Lawrence, 15 carries, 93 yards. Eric Rivers, 71 yards off of 3 carries. Destin Washington, never mind. He got a drop in that game, not a touchdown. Defensively, Elijah Anderson-Taylor, 14 total tackles. So good showing for him, but no. Not great. But now it's time to ask this question. Who is winning between the FIU Panthers or the Liberty Flames? Kevin, we're going to start off with you. Give us your prediction and give us the score.
I'm so sorry, man. I'm taking liberty to take down the Panthers. I think it'll be close. I'm going to go with a 38 to 27 final score. I think it'll be like a 11-point game. High scoring. Liberty comes out on top.
I'm taking I'm just kidding. I'm going to take the Liberty Flames, man. They have so much veteran experience on that team, and they're used to playing in big games. So compared to what they had to go through in that Fiesta Bowl, this might feel like a walk in the park. I know FIU has talent, and I know that they're coming off a win and all that, but they still have so many glaring holes on this team, such as their rush defense that can be exposed by the Flames, and sometimes the offense just can't get into a groove. And Liberty's got a great defensive squad. I'm sorry, I don't even think it's going to be close. I'm taking Liberty by a score of 45 to 24.
Oh, that's not that bad. FIU only scored 6.
Yeah. That is true. The offense, I think the offense will look a little bit better, but still, I think the Flames are going to have their way on offense, which is what's going to kill FIU in this game.
Those odds aren't even out. I don't even know when the odds drop.
They'll probably drop on Sunday.
They really drop them right before then. Okay.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up there, man. Win or lose, we're going to be rooting for the Panthers here. They're going to be taking on the Liberty Flames on Tuesday night. It's going to be on CBS Sports Network, a nationally televised game.
Only college football game that day, I think.
I know. Isn't this great? Just every day there's going to be a random college football game from either CUSA or the MAC. It's going to be awesome. Midweek football's back, baby. So go watch the Panthers. We'll see what happens. We'll be there for the halftime report and post-game shows. Until then, paws up.
Paws up, baby.